Saved by the zero. And so far, guys, like, we're doing amazing here. And I think I spoke too soon, guys. The yellow chips are out. If we lose this one, we could be in trouble. Zero. Yes! Got it. All right. Hello, Wheel Masters, and welcome back to Mastering the Wheel. So we're back at the Bankroll Building Challenge, and today we're on day 18. And we've got 17 consecutive wins behind us, and of course, hoping to put another one under our belts. So let's see what happens today. Now, if you've been watching the channel, you'll know that I love to take a mathematical approach to the game. But if you're new to the channel, what I do is I use math to understand the probabilities of all of the events that happen in roulette, including the probability of my progression failing. And understanding that one metric alone can actually give me an advantage when it comes to playing roulette. As everybody knows, the longer we spend at the wheel, the higher the probability is of us losing our bankroll, right? That's usually the number one factor as to why we lose, is we've stayed too long. So I've learned how to mitigate that risk and reduce it to the point where I understand the limitation of the progression that I'm using, and I apply that limitation to my game, and I know exactly when to leave before I actually lose my bankroll. Now, it's not bulletproof. Of course, losses can still happen, but I simply lose less as a result of doing this. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of techniques that I use to understand the probability behind roulette and show you how I'm able to mitigate risk. And as a result, that helps me lose less, which inevitably I win more. So let's get right into it. But before we do, guys, if you guys don't mind hitting that subscribe button and the like button, it does help out the channel a great deal, and I do really appreciate it. So thank you very much for that. And now, after I show you guys these tools that I use, we're going to go ahead and play some roulette, and we'll see how we put this into practice and why I'm most likely going to win today. No guarantees, but you know, when I use probabilities this way, I tend to get a bit of an advantage. So let me show it to you. So I'm going to go to my website, and there I've got some tools. I'm just going to make the page like that. And so what we're going to use right now is this risk calculator. So I'll open that up. And what this is basically going to do is tell me what the average probability of my system is. And it really only needs two numbers: how much wheel coverage we have and how deep is our progression. So today we're going to be placing bets on 18 numbers. So what I'm going to do is type in 18 numbers right here, and the progression we're going to be using has 7 levels. So I'm going to add 7 levels right there. All I have to do is calculate the risk window, and I get these numbers here. So this here is the important one. That means on average, my system will fail once every 216 spins. Now, not on cue, but on average. It might fail 2 or 3 times within 100 spins, but then it might go 600 or 700 spins without failing at all, okay? This just gives me an idea of its failure rate. And that's all we need to know is averages, okay? Now, what I've learned is that about 20% of that number will be an adequate risk window for me to enter the game. And so that's what this number here is: 43 spins. So when I play this progression, I go in and I start playing, and I don't play for any longer than 43 spins. But there's another part to the way that I play also. I like to use a trigger, and the trigger that I use is called system failure. And what I mean by that is, since this progression has a chance of failing once every 216 spins, what I'll do is I'll wait for the system to actually fail before I start playing, because it's already kind of a rare event that it's happening on average once every 216 spins. So once it fails, mathematically speaking, statistically speaking, probabilistically speaking, it's a less likely event that it's going to happen again back to back. Now, I'm not saying that it can't happen, and it does happen, but it happens, it's very rare. It's a rare event. If it constantly failed back to back, then you can forget about the whole, probability theory of it failing once every 216 spins. But because probability does govern the game, every number does have a 1 in 37 chance of appearing, 2.7%. Every other event that is much larger than that also has probabilities, and those probabilities come to fruition over a big enough spin sample. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean with the next tool that I'm going to show you. So I need you to remember that number, 216, because what I'm about to show you is nothing short of impressive. Okay. So just understand that we're going to be staying in this game for no more than 40 spins, and I like to set a financial target of 10% of my bankroll, or the amount of money at risk. But I would like to make that much. But if I get to 40 spins before I hit my financial target, well, that's when I leave. I forget about the financial target. It's really about the spin count. Okay. So that said, let's go ahead and have a look at the other tool I'm talking about. Now, this is called a back tester. And what this allows me to do is zoom out and look at roulette in a way that you've never seen it before. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the progression that we're going to be using today. It's 18 number coverage, 7 levels, and then I'm going to load up a bunch of data. And that data is going to this is actual live spin data, and I'm going to load up a big one. This is my biggest data set. It's got over 5,000 spins that I collected in January. I let this run for 3 days almost and just continuously collected spins. Now, the spin data is in there. You can see I've got 5,160 spins, and then the strategy I'm going to load is the hottest 18. Now, when I run backtest, so what this is showing us here, each dip is when the system actually failed, so I would have lost. So play all through here, lose, and then play again and lose. Now, you can see this pattern that's kind of emerged. In between each loss, there's at least about 100 spins on average, okay? With the exception of this small area right here. Now, this is an extremely common pattern when I see roulette from this perspective. I see all of these nice opportunities that I could have played, and then this happens every now and again. On a spin sample of about 1,000 spins, I'll see something like this, maybe once, sometimes less. So you can just say maybe on average in 1,000 spins, this happens. So when I enter the game, there's roughly a 5% chance I'm going to enter when this happens. Okay, that's the first thing. Second is that when I enter the game, I don't know if I'm entering, like if I entered here, I don't know if I'm entering in the middle of the probability cycle or at the end of the probability cycle. I just don't know. If the system just failed, the likeliness of it failing again right away are very slim, as you can see on this chart, right? So if I wait for it to fail and then start playing, all I need to do is get 14 wins and then get out. Okay, 14 wins works out to about, I can usually do that in about 30 spins on average, but I've given myself 40 spins. That was the spin limit based on the failure rate of 1 in 216. Now, look at these numbers right here. We've got 5,160 spins, and it's failed 23 times within that. Watch this, guys. I'm going to go 5,160, and we're going to divide that by 23. It failed on average once every 224 spins. That's only 8 spins off of the mathematical expectation. Okay, so this is how I mean that roulette can actually be predictable this way, right? It's impossible to predict the next spin. That's where the random comes in. And even with the distribution of when the fails happen, like you can see here, it's random. It's not happening exactly every 216 spins, but you can see that on average, after it fails, it doesn't fail right away. And it failing right away is actually a pretty rare event. Okay, so I use that to my advantage. I enter in a statistically stretched moment of the game right after something that was unlikely to already happen just happened, and then I start playing and I get out before that unlikely event becomes slightly more likely again, because it's going to happen. It's going to fail. Of course it's going to fail, but we get out before it does. Okay, so this is the whole basis to my style of play. And this is how I've been able to stay, I guess you could say, ahead of the game, and I win more than the expectation is mathematically speaking, right? So that's what I do, guys. These tools are available for Betmaster members on the website at www.betmaster-data.com. And if you want to enhance your game, absolutely check it out. And you can use the program that I use, which we're about to use right now to play the game of roulette. So let's get into the game, and I'm going to show you exactly how I apply using triggers to help me win. And there's one more trigger that we're also going to be looking for, and I'm going to explain that as I start setting up the program to execute some bets for us. So let's get into that right now. Okay, so here we are at the table. And this is my program BetMaster. Again, if you're new to the channel, this is the program that I use to help me execute bets. This places bets in a way that are humanly impossible. Today we're going to be placing bets on the hottest 18 numbers. So 18 individual numbers that have been hitting most frequently. And the reason I choose that is because I find, like, if you're going to bet on half the wheel, whether it's red, black, even, odd, high, or low, and let's say you wanted to bet on something hot, there's only a few numbers in black or red or whatever that might make that part of the wheel hot. And then there's all the other cold numbers in those pre-selected numbers, right? In that, let's say you were betting on black because it was hot. There's going to be 5 or 6 hot black numbers, and the rest of those numbers just aren't hitting as much for whatever reason. So what I found is by isolating the individual numbers on the wheel that have all been hitting above their expected average, I tend to do a little bit better. So that's the way I like to play. And as my philosophy goes, I just like to place my bets where the ball is landing. So we're going to be doing that with the program. Again, something that pretty much is humanly impossible. Now, I'll bring the program right here into the center, and we're going to get everything started. So the first thing I have to do is pull some data from the, or some history, sorry, from the casino. So I'm going to start collecting data. And let's get some numbers here. Going to use my snippet tool to take a screenshot. Okay, we got all 88 numbers. I'm going to import them. And you can see here the last number was 0 that we caught, but the 15 has come in the meantime, so I'm just going to enter that manually. Okay, we've got it all. All right, so now I'm just going to adjust this slider to 74 spins. I find that too many spins, like 100 plus, can be too many hot numbers to get a good idea of what's actually been hot recent enough to make a valid difference. So I use 74 spins for that window. And now I'm going to open up my advanced stats tab, and this is the heat map for individual numbers. So what we're looking at here is any red number, of course, has hit more than 1 in 37 on average. Any blue number has hit less than 1 in 37 on average. And any gray number has hit exactly 1 in 37 on average. So this heat map, now that we're on this right now, I'll just mention, is going to be the other trigger that we're going to be looking for. So first, we're looking for system failure. And if the system fails, we're going to go in, it's going to go in and automatically start placing bets. But what I've also found is when this heat map is hotter than usual, and what I mean by usual is on average, you'll see usually 12 red numbers at any given time. Right now, we've got, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So pretty close to 12. So give or take, you'll see about 12 numbers at any given time. I find that when the system fails, typically this is going to drop to, like, 6, 7, 8 red numbers. And more often than not, the system fails at that point, and then it slowly starts to come back. So that's one section. So the program is going to handle that all on its own. If this drops down and it just starts, and then we fail, system is going to, the program is going to go in and start placing bets after the system fails. But maybe this doesn't drop low enough, and maybe the system doesn't actually fail. Maybe this gets up to like 14 or 15 red numbers. What I also find is that when this table gets overactive, when this heat map is more active than usual, more active than 12 red numbers on average, I find it can take forever for the system to fail, which is another good time to jump in and just play, get your 14 wins, and get out. So while we're waiting for the system to fail, I'm going to be watching this heat map. And if I find that this heat map has been overactive for an extended period of time, say we hit 13, 14 numbers, even 15 numbers especially, and it's sustained that for about 15 spins or so, 20 spins, I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to remove the trigger from the program, and it'll automatically start placing bets for me. So those are going to be one of the two, or that's going to be the second entry point. So we've basically got one of two entry points to come in: system failure or overactive heat map. Okay, so now that we've got that out of the way, I just have to do a couple of other things to get this set up. I have to start a session. And since we have the Bankroll building challenge, I'm going to call this Bankroll building challenge, or Bankroll building, and we are on day 18. And for this progression, we need a $230 bankroll with a 10-cent starting unit. That's going to be 10 cents on each individual number. And another thing that I need to do. So as you guys know, inactivity, right? If you're not active on these websites, they tend to give you an inactivity pause. And so because we're waiting for a trigger, and this can take some time, we need to keep the session active, essentially. So I'm going to set up some custom clicks. And what that's going to do is I've got these actions that are essentially going to every certain spin interval. For this casino, they're very generous. I have 20 minutes before they give me an inactivity pause. So for every 20 spins, basically, my program is going to click on the page refresh button, so that way we can keep the session active. And another thing I have to do, I just realized, I have to turn this. So this here is the data that we collect. Now we get this data for every single number or every single bet sector of the wheel. Right now we're looking at individual numbers, and I'm going to filter this by hot. And now, so you can see here, for example, the number 21 has come 7 times within the last 74 spins. This number should be 2. A number has an average of 1 in 37 chances of appearing. So this has appeared 7 times over the last 74 spins. And then we've got the 20 at 5 times. We've got all of these here at 4 times, and then some 3s, which I wouldn't really consider, hot, but they're slightly above their statistical average. And then, so we've got the percentage. For example, 21 has come 9.46% of the time out of 74 spins. Max drought for the 21. That means the longest it's gone without being hit. So it's gone 20 spins without being hit. That's the longest over the 74 spins. Last time it was hit was 18 spins ago, and on average it's been hitting once every 10 spins. Okay, so that's the kind of information that we collect on all bet sectors. Right now we're just looking at individual numbers, but we've got the same information for streets, corners, double streets, and splits. And besides that, guys, I think we're all set to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and activate the trigger right now. Oh, first, I just realized I do have to load the progression. I guess that would help. And so this is a pre-built progression, or I build these progressions myself. Another advantage to this program is it has a built-in progression builder, so you can basically build any progression that you want and have the program automatically execute those bets for you. So that's what's happening here. So I just loaded a progression that I built. It's got all of the logic in it, from the system failure trigger to the the bet locations and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and activate this now, and then go back to Stats tab so that we can see what's happening. Now you'll see in a second when the next spin result is registered, or when is noticed, that my cursor is going to move down to the undo button, and that's going to be its resting position basically now until the trigger gets fired. So you'll see it there. And there it is. So now that's it. We are going to wait until it fires. Now this trigger can take minutes, or it can take hours to fire. So what we're going to do is speed up the video and get right to the point where the trigger becomes active, or if I jump into the game, either or. And while the video is sped up, I'm going to go ahead and play a song from the Betmaster soundtrack. So enjoy the music, and I will see you guys back here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. Betmaster on the table, yeah, I carved my fate. Roulette, try to hide, but the numbers can't escape. Every deviation bleeds, every pattern I collect. Put a coffin for the spins that the program dissect. 100 spin coffins, lined up in a row. 100 spin coffins, Betmaster, let him know. If the wheel wanna lie, I'll expose what it's been. You ain't looking at a gambler, this the execution of a spin. I ain't praying to the table, I ain't hoping for a sign. I just feed the program numbers, let it study every line. Black streak, red streak, zero smudging in between. Betmaster, see the truth, where your intuition lean. Screens glowing like a mission, AI breathing in the night. OCR eyes wide, taking pictures of the fight. Patterns in the shadows, cold numbers in retreat. Got the stats on a leash, every buy's at my feet. 20 spins of silence, then the engine start to hum. Probabilities, the weapon whisper
whisper back like a drum. I ain't chasing no illusion, I ain't here to feel alive. I'm just here to bend the math till the math don't survive. Click bet place, then the cursor slides slow. Wheel spin, haunts the air like a ghost about to show. Bet master in the matrix where the truth runs thin. We don't gamble with the wheel, we assassinate a spin.
Bet master on the table, yeah, I call my fate. Roulette, try to hide, but the numbers can't escape. Every deviation bleeds, every pattern I collect. Put a coffin for the spins that the program dissect. 100 spin coffins, line up in a row. 100 spin coffins, bet master, let them know. If the wheel wanna lie, I'll expose what it's been. You ain't looking at a gambler, this the execution of a spin.
I seen players lose faith, seen them begging for a break, but I'm built like a machine. Every move is calculated, sessions start denomination lock. Numbers tremble, then react. I don't chase, I detect. Every hit is based in fact. 5 reds in a row, that's a message, not a trend. Let the script breathe slow, watch the logic start to bend. Safety mode on patrol, cursor floating through the dark. When the trigger count is 3, roulette feels the bite mark. Bad attempts on a leash like a chamber with rounds. When on first, reset clean, no emotion to be found but lose. We escalate mathematical assault till the wheels start confessing like deviations at fault. Every zero that appears, that's a ghost in the chain. It belong to both colors, feed the logic through the vein. This a battlefield that spins and I don't plan to retreat. But master load artillery, roulette dead.
Bet master on the table, yeah, I call my fate. Roulette, try to hide, but the numbers can't escape. Every deviation bleeds, every pattern I collect. Put a coffin for the spins that the program dissect. 100 spin coffins, line up in a row. 100 spin coffins, bet master, let them know. If the wheel wanna lie, I'll expose what it's been. You ain't looking at a gambler, this the execution of a spin.
Nightfall on the lobby, live dealer in the frame. But I ain't watching their hands, I'm dissecting the game. Spin tracker on the hunt, every number on display. Let the statistics testify, roulette got this to pay. Wheel whisper like a sinner, I ain't meant to be beat. But bet master crack a grin, mad bow before me. 3 dozen, 2 column sniper shots in the miss. I got algorithms lurking with a vengeance in they fist. Cold numbers resurrect, that's a lie in the code. But hot number set fire, that's a path I reload. This ain't luck, this devotion, calculation in my blood. Turn the buys into profit, turn uncertainty to mud. I ain't fearing no spin, I don't bow to the odds. I'm a surgeon with data, lead the wheel, playing God. Roulette, think it's eternal, let the programmer send. Place one more coffin down, it's the wheels bitter end.
Bet master on the table, yeah, I call my fate. Roulette, try to hide, but the numbers can't escape. Every deviation bleeds, every pattern I collect. Put a coffin for the spins that the program dissect. 100 spin coffins, line up in a row. 100 spin coffins, bet master, let them know. If the wheel wanna lie, I'll expose what it's been. You ain't looking at a gambler, this the execution of a spin.
Okay, guys, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in here because I've been watching this thing go up and up and up. So I'm just going to go ahead and deactivate the trigger, and then we'll talk about my observations and why I decided to jump in here. So let me just deactivate this now. Trying to hurry up here so I can get this done before the next spin result. Don't need custom clicks anymore. Okay, there we go. Now on the next result, we should see it start to place some bets, and then we'll talk about what's going on. We've got a lot of red numbers on the wheel. Oh, it didn't place bets. Oh, I know what's going on. I think it's because, yeah, okay. I have to reset the progression. I forgot to click that on and off, or off and on. There we go. That should do it. Okay, sorry about that. So we just possibly missed an opportunity, but that's okay. It's just one spin, and now it should place bets. I was in such a rush to get it, get the trigger turned off, I forgot to reset the progression. And, okay, there it goes. Now we're off. All right, so you can see the heat map. We've got 15 red numbers on there. And when we first entered, it was at 12. And then it basically, you know, just gradually went up to 14, held that for a while, and then 15. I see this happen, you know, sometimes it can take a while for this to happen. They'll just hover around 12, go back down to 11, then maybe 13, and then 12. So it jumps around 12, but this just kept going up and up and up. And that's usually my first sign that the table is heating up and I should start placing bets. It's going to be like this for a while. So that's why I decided to jump in. I'm just going on what I see on average and what's really worked. And this is a clear sign for me of what's been working. So that's why I jumped in. Now, Well, we lost our first bet, so let's see what happens on our second one. Um, yeah. Now we didn't wait for the system failure. That can take a while. But like I was saying in the beginning, this is another entry point that I've noticed that seems to work. It's when the table is more active than usual for whatever reason. And there we go. We just got our win. Perfect. Yeah, when the table is more active than usual for whatever reason, it seems to be a better time to enter. Whether it's a wheel bias or I don't know, why ever the ball is landing in these pockets for whatever reason. Personally, I don't really care. I just know that's where the action is, and it's happening more than average. So I should start now. So that's it. And this heat map allows me to be able to see that information so that I can make these decisions. Um, you know and when it came to the system failure, so that graph that I was showing you guys at the beginning, that's been a massive eye opener for me, allowing me to see now. And just to back up a little bit, that graph, you can, like, I only showed you one progression on that, but you can use that for any progression to get an idea of how often it fails, and what a good entry point is, an exit point, because a pattern does emerge when you're looking at your progression over 5,000 spins. And if something is probably going to happen, or probabilistically going to happen, it's going to happen within, what that said probability is. In this case, 1 in 215, 216 spins. And when I showed you guys on the calculator how that averaged out, I mean, it couldn't have been closer, right? Well, I suppose it could have been, but 200, and I think it was 224 spins on average it failed, and that's only 8 spins off of the mathematical model. And then, when we look at the failure on the chart, and you saw how there's at least 100 spins in between each failure. That's more than enough to get in the amount of wins that you need before it's going to fail again, right? So this is extremely valuable information. Now, like I said, there's no guarantee that it's not going to fail back to back, because it can and it does, but that's a rare event. That doesn't happen all the time, right? You can liken that to like a run of red or a run of black, let's say like 10 red or 10 black. If you sit at the wheel long enough, you'll see a run of 10 black, right? I'm certain that you guys have seen a run of 10 black, but have you seen a run of 10 black and then say a couple of red and then 10 black again? Maybe you have, but that's not something that you see every day, right? That's a rare event. So the progression is no different, right? It can fail back to back, but that's a rare event. So that's really what I'm banking on when I use that trigger. And then when I discovered this trigger, like I sit here and I'm waiting for my system to fail. So while I'm waiting for it to fail, I'm just watching the heat map, and I noticed something while I'm watching the wheel, while I'm watching, waiting for my trigger. And what I noticed was that when the board is just, it's very red, there's more than average red numbers, the system just won't fail. It just keeps going and going and going while I'm waiting for it to fail. And then when it does fail, it's usually when that heat map goes below a threshold of about 10 red numbers on average. Now, that said, I do see it fail sometimes when there's, 12 or more red numbers, but not always, right? Again, this comes down to what happens on average and what's considered rare and more frequent. So noticing those signs, I've been able to use what I've learned and actually mitigate a lot of my risk. And as a result, I tend to lose less, which inevitably means that I win more. Right? So just some of the ways you can use data to make data-based decisions when you're playing roulette. Roulette is a game of random in the sense that it's impossible to predict the next number. There's no amount of data in the world that can do that. I know that there's some, software that claims that, put in the last 5 spins and it'll tell you within a certain probability what the next number will be. I mean, that's absolutely impossible. And, run away from tool. I wouldn't even call those tools. They're more like gimmicks. There's nothing that can do that. And they use language like, advanced algorithm or neural network that has these advanced technologies that can detect the next spin based on history. No, that's impossible, right? So that's not what analyzing data to play roulette does. Analyzing data is just you're figuring out what happens on average with whatever system that you're going to use, and that way you can figure out when you can enter and when you should leave. right? Every system has a different risk profile, and like this one with a risk of 1 in 216 failure. That's because we're covering 18 numbers and we have 7 attempts. I know that a system that say covers 24 numbers and has 5 attempts, that system will fail on average once every 286 spins. The trade-off is the amount of money you have to put at risk, right? You sacrifice a couple of levels too. So there's a little bit of math involved in figuring out what the real risk is, and when you're thinking about how much money you're putting at risk for the levels of progression that you're getting. And just excuse me 1 second, guys, because I'm noticing. Okay, good. I saw some gray chips come out there. Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of 24 number systems, even though on the surface it looks like it's a bit less risky because it's got a failure rate of 1 in 286. But you lose a couple of chances, which can make a difference, and it's a little bit more expensive. You have to triple the bet, and it makes the bankroll slightly more than using an 18 number system. But that said, it just understanding the probability or the risk of what your system is going to fail in can give you that, what I call a spin window to operate in. And that just makes the game safer, right? And safer doesn't mean, you're not going to lose. Losing in roulette, eventually you're going to lose. Like I lose every now and again, right? It can't be completely avoided, but it can certainly be mitigated, right? Your risks can be mitigated. You can think of it like, I mean, I don't know. I guess in a way I could say it's kind of like poker in a sense. Like if you think about, the professional poker players, right? They're not the best poker players, or they don't win poker more than the average person because they're the luckiest people around, right? Especially like, players like, I don't know if you guys are into poker at all, but the famous poker player Daniel Negreanu, he talks a lot about how he uses math in poker. Now, of course, poker has another element to it too, and that's, of course, you're playing the player, but it's also a game of math, understanding the probabilities. And when you approach poker that way, you can gain an edge over people who don't. Roulette is no different, right? The casino wants you to think that roulette is just a game of just a game of random, and that's only half the truth, really. It is a game of random, and you can't argue that, right? You can't predict the next spin, like I was saying, and nor can you predict the distribution of when things are going to happen, like my system failing 1 in 216 spins. Sometimes it fails at 50, sometimes it fails at 90, sometimes it fails at 500. So we can't control the distribution. We know the averages, right? So understanding roulette that way and taking the mathematical approach to it, we can, well, essentially mitigate risk. I went off on a tangent there. I was talking about poker and geez, I wanted to say something. I completely forgot. That's okay. But anyways, I think you guys get the point. It really is. It just comes down to the math. Oh, that's what I was going to say. How the casino wants you to think it's just a game of random, complete random. And when you think that the game is just completely random without any other, context, then what does that do to the way you bet? You don't think that placing your bets in particular places matters, right? So you bet randomly. Well, whose advantage is that to, right? Of course, to the casinos. So when you understand that roulette is so much more than a game of random, and you start taking into consideration the probabilities, you start to realize that there are actually specific moments you can start playing at and understand how long you should stay at based on the system that you're using. And this can be a huge advantage and give you an edge. This doesn't eliminate risk, but it mitigates it. And that's the difference, right? So I actually wrote a couple of articles on how I use these techniques to mitigate risk. You can go to my website at www.betmaster-data.com, and in the Roulette Lab, there's a couple of articles in there where I talk about how I use these techniques to mitigate my risk, and I also have an article there on what I call the EDGE framework, and it just kind of gives you an idea of how I build progressions and how I consider the amount of coverage versus the wheel coverage and how deep I go in my progression and how much I'm willing to spend on that progression in terms of money. Because another thing that you can do to mitigate risk is not make your progression go so deep. Um, you know, there's a certain point where, like, for example, this progression, we have 7 levels. I would never go an 8th level because it doesn't make mathematical sense. If I were to lose at the 8th level, then that would mean with my current structure, I would have to win 20 sessions just to get that money back, right? And the alternative, if I want to do it in 10 sessions, is I have to double my stake, right? From 10-cent units to 20-cent units at this structure, and then if I lose at that before I can win 10 sessions, then well, I have to double my stake again. It runs into the snowball effect. So the idea is to make sure that you're able to win just enough to recover your money on a loss, on average. So for me to win 10 sessions the way I normally play, not that it's easy, but I do it quite often. Okay, like today we're on day 18 right now. I haven't lost a single session, and winning 18 consecutive times, I have to be honest, isn't typical. I usually win somewhere between 11 and 13. I can hit 15, but that's typical. So if I can keep up that average, I'm always going to be ahead, right? And admittedly, sometimes within 10 sessions, I will lose twice. I've even lost 3 times within 10 sessions, and that really backs me up a little bit. But that's a really rare event. Typically for me, I'm winning between 11 and 13 before I take a loss. So, and it's funny because not that anything's really due in roulette, but I guess you could kind of say at this point I'm due for a loss. So it's going to happen. I'm waiting for it to happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but it's inevitable, right? You can't avoid losses. They're going to happen, but you can do certain things that help you mitigate them. And that's all I'm saying, right? And so far, guys, like, we're doing amazing here. We are at a 57% hit rate. And there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 16 red numbers on the heat map right now. So, we're doing great. I see we dipped down. We must have got to level 3 there, a few spins in. I guess that's when we had the gray chips out on the table. But yeah, I mean, it's a good session. We've only got 3 more wins to go before we hit our target. So let's see what happens. It's yeah, it's a good day. Now those tools that I was showing you, well, I showed you 2 of the 3 tools. I showed you the risk calculator, and actually, everybody has access to that. If you sign up for a BetMaster account now, you can use that risk calculator and calculate the risk of your progressions. You just have to go to www.betmaster-data.com. And after you sign up for an account, go into your dashboard and scroll right down to the bottom, and you'll see some roulette tools there. So you can use 2 of them. One of them is the one we used earlier in this video, the risk calculator. And then there's a progression calculator that allows you to build progressions and figure out what you're going to make at every single level. And you can edit the levels to to accommodate your whatever risk you want to take. You can adjust how much you want to make or lose, etc. And then the third tool is, well, what I showed you is the back tester. You actually need to be a BetMaster member, a tier 2 or tier 3 to have that, and that's basically because it requires parts of BetMaster to be used. You need to be able to collect data with BetMaster and use progressions that are built right within BetMaster. And I think I spoke too soon, guys. The yellow chips are out. We're on level 5. That's these last couple of losses have affected our win rate. All right. We still have a pretty good heat map, and just because everything's red, like I've failed when everything was red. It does happen. It does happen. Not very often, but it does happen. Oh, okay. I hope this isn't it. I mean, maybe I was speaking too soon. Maybe this is the day that I'm due to lose. All right, let's keep our fingers crossed. We're on level 6, so we need to hit a red number. Yeah, if we lose this one, we could be in trouble. Oh, I hate level 7. Here we go. Keep your fingers crossed, guys. This could be the end of the video. We don't go to level 7 very often, and, you know, we were having such a good run here. It'd be a shame if we take the hit right here. All right, let's go. Oh, come on. 0. Yes! Got it. All right. Saved by the 0. Wow. Gotta love it. See, you're not going to get that kind of bet on, or that kind of hit on any of the even bets. You lose on the 0 every time. But we managed to make money off of it. Wow. Okay, so a nice reset. We've got 2 more wins to go. Hopefully we can put those in the bag nice and quick and get this session over with. Oh, man. I hate level 7. Did I already say that? I'm pretty sure I did. Jeez. That really affected our win rate, though. Well, we're down, 48%, so now we're around average where we should be. You know, so that's fine. And, okay, so now we're level 2. Yeah, thank God we got that last one. Jeez. Like I said, I don't get to level 7 very often, but when I do, it's like, oh, you know, your gut drops. You think it's going to be over, and for me, because this is day 18, you know, it's going to hurt a little bit when that loss finally does come, and it looked like it might just happen, but luckily we were able to pull out of it, and we just need one more win here, guys, and we've got this in the bag. Just one more win. And we've got a nice red table, so, you know, on average, I normally win when the table looks like this. We got, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we are at 14 red numbers. We were at 16 at our height. You know, 16 is pretty high. And we got it. There we go. So another win, guys. That's 18 consecutive wins in a row. I don't know what to say. You know, it's been a great run. We're doing really well. We had a close call, but pulled through it. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. It does help out the channel a great deal, and I do very much appreciate it. If you guys like what you saw here with Betmaster, you can go check it out at www.betmaster-data.com. The program is available there for download, and if you have any questions about the program, there's an FAQ right there on the website that should answer all your questions, but if not, throw them down here in the comments. I don't mind answering any questions you guys might have, and you know, Betmaster will absolutely enhance your roulette experience. You know, roulette is like a puzzle, and Betmaster helps you figure it out. So check it out, and guys, take care, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.
Yeah, Betmaster tracking data, got the analytics move. They betting blind, I'm betting smart, watch me hit the groove. Triggers armed and ready when the action starts to peak. System watching street collapse before the table even speaks. Read it 7 times, I'm loaded up for black to sneak. Numbers don't lie, patterns die, that's the edge I seek. Every spin gets documented, every trend gets caught. Progression, automation, doing everything I taught. Risk calculator telling me exactly what I bought. While they throwing chips at hope, I'm executing thought.